What's up, everybody? It's the Hardy Construction. Find us at hardyconstruction.tumblr.com, youtube.com/hardyconstruction, as well as facebook.com/the Hardy Construction with yours, Comp, and
427.
Today's film is
Cell, 2016?
Cell 2016, when a mysterious cell phone signal causes akapaka. I read that wrong. I almost said akapocalypse. Apocalyptic chaos. An artist is determined to reunite with his young son in New England. Directed by Todd Williams. Written by Adam Ellicka, Stephen King, and somebody else, or something or other. Starring John Cusack, Samuel L. Jackson, Isabel Furman, and a couple of other people. There's actually one more really famous guy. I got Stacy Keach, I think, right? Yeah, he's a good actor. Was it Stacy Keach? Yeah, Stacy Keach. And rounding out rounding out is Owen Teague as Jordan. So, Danny, why did we pick this movie?
Well, we both watched, we both read the book, and it's supposed to be a horror movie.
So I think with this episode, we can get into what we expect from Stephen King movies and what do we get from Stephen King movies. This movie has had a very long gestating film.
Yeah, I feel like I heard about this like 5 years ago.
I've been talking about this movie. Well, not this certain movie that we're going to review right now, but I've been talking about the aspect of the Cell film coming out for the longest time. I've always said that Eli Roth was supposed to direct a version of this film, of the book, into a film a long time ago. And
it's too bad he didn't.
Yeah, watching this, I was like, yeah, shit. I wish he had. Almost, I think he if he had kept the cast. Although I don't know about John Cusack, but he was.
I didn't have any problem with the casting.
He was supposed to direct a version of Cell a while back, and I think he said he left on creative differences. I think that's bullshit. I think around the time that he was supposed to start up Cell, Hostel 2 had just come out. Hostel 2, obviously the sequel to the very popular
was that
horror
good,
film.
The second one?
No, I didn't like it personally. I thought it was sort of like retreading the first film. It was literally, I hate to use that phrase, I guess, but it was basically the first film over, but it was done for like women. So the women were the protagonists, and then they were like, saving the day and stuff like that. So, but it was basically the first film, the first Hostel film I love. Like, it's just, there's something about that movie that I loved.
I guess it's like, how many times could you do the same exact?
Right, it was perfectly closed up, and I could see what they did. Like, it was sort of a split narrative between a woman who was in the hostel and one of those people that tortures people. So it was like a split film in that sense. But it wasn't worth it. And I think since the failure of that movie, personally, I thought that's what kind of took him off the director roles of Cell. I don't know why. He should have kept with it. There's plenty of directors who made shit movies and then they're promised another movie during, while they're doing that, while they're in the midst of their first movie failing. But anyways,
this movie actually, this wasn't as bad as you made it seem.
Okay, no, I think this is what I wanted to talk about with Cell. So Cell is a novel by Stephen King. It came out, when did it come out? That must have been like 2000, mid-2000s, right?
2006.
Is when the book came out? Okay, so give me a refresher on the storyline if you remember.
Well, yeah, it's been about since 2006 that I read it, but it's more or less intact. I mean, it's about an artist who just signed a big deal and he wants to, and then this whole shit goes down and he wants to reunite with his family, and he meets Tom and a few other people, Alice and a couple other people along the way.
Yeah.
And they get a lot more into...
Basically, a big pulse of a phone, a pulse goes through all these people's cell phones while they're on it, and it turns these people into these sort of zombie characters. And eventually, it's just about Clay surviving.
It gets way more into the phone
right.
People.
So Clay is trying to survive while looking for his son. So the novel Cell came out in 2007. There was a similar film that came out a while back. 2006. There was a film that came out similarly called The Signal that came out in 2007 around the same time. It's a Canadian.
Was that good?
Yeah, it was good. It was a decent film, but while watching it, I was like, wow, this is sort of Cell. Like, if you see The Signal, I think you would think it's a better adaptation of Cell than Cell was. But they came out at the same time. It's sort of like, it was the same sort of deal as those large asteroid movies. There was a movie called obviously the one with that Michael
Also,
Bay.
The Illusionist and
Right.
The Magician, or whatever.
Right, so yeah, like I'm saying, like Armageddon came out at the same time as Deep Impact. So, but it was different because it was a novel that came out and a film that came out roughly within the same couple of months. I don't know. One came out 2006, one came out 2007. Regardless, The Signal was a pretty good film, but I was like, damn, I want to see the Cell movie because the Cell would have like floating zombies and just hordes of zombies after people, while the Signal didn't have that much money. And I would suggest watching The Signal, but so anyway, I was deeply, I was rooted into seeing this film. I was like, shit, it was the first Stephen King novel I've ever read, like physically read a Stephen King novel. I've always used to watch his films. So, like, once I heard the premise, I was like, oh, zombies that are started because, phone calls. And I just wanted, I was a fan of Stephen King's probably people dealing with a bigger force than they can deal with in the character interactions. Like,
yeah, and like
obviously,
small-scale people locked in a
obviously,
place
like The Mist and stuff like It. And like, which is really cool because it's basically, it's a character drama, but he levels in enough horror in it that you're like, fuck, man, this is kind of frightening, So I read the book, and I was like, really good. And I remember years back, my friend at the time would tell me that he loved Stephen King novels, but Stephen King didn't know how to end his books. And I had never read his books. So when I read this book, I was like, the ending of the novel.
I guess that's true.
Yeah, I read the end of the novel, and I was like, the ending spoiler for the novel. Obviously, if you're listening to this, you heard this already. He finds his son, and then he tries to put the phone to his son. I don't remember that. I just remember them walking off. That's all I remember.
That's like the last thing.
Right, apparently at the end of
the kid Jordan, that little kid that was with the professor, like, tells him his theory, because basically every time the pulse is being eaten from within and, like, degrading, like, whatever that virus is like, changing. So as the phone people keep forcing people telepathically to pick up phones and, like, become phone people, it's, like, changing little by little each time.
Okay.
So he thinks that by taking a new version of the pulse and forcing his son, who's been exposed to it, to listen again, it will reverse it.
Which is funny because that's exactly how The Signal ends as well. Well, in a certain way, it's like in The Signal, it's also cell phones that turns people crazy and stuff like that. Or I don't know if it was just a cell phone. I think it was a lot of things that turned people crazy in that film, but it was definitely a something from the radio waves. And at the end, this guy tries to win his girlfriend back, who he's having an affair with behind her husband, who goes crazy. And he's trying to put headphones on her to see if she turns back to normal. And that's how the movie just ends, just like that. And I was like, okay, so I'm reading Cell. Yeah. I was like, huh, that's how it ends too. But there was no real like concrete ending to it. It's
I
more
actually
open-ended.
I didn't mind it. A lot of people.
I mean, I didn't hate it, but I understood why people would, like, when my friend said, "Oh, he doesn't know how to resolve a book." I was like, "Well, I guess you're right," because they didn't explain what the creature, what caused this, which I was fine with. I didn't care about that because I'm sure it wouldn't. Like, as soon as I remember, we were having this conversation earlier that, like, once you told me what happened in Under the Dome, I was like, "Oh, brother, I'm glad there wasn't a fucking answer to this." And anyway, so I had read the book. I liked it. It was the first Stephen King book I read. I remember somebody did a review.
It's a good one.
Yes, somebody did a review for the novel, I think in New York Times or the New Yorker or something, and they did an illustration for it which perfectly captures the opening of the novel, which if you can Google this right now, look up Homer Tanuka, Stephen King Cell. Homer Tanuka, I believe, is an Israeli guy who's an art illustrator. And he perfectly captures what happens in the book in the first scene when Clay is at a park and the signal hits and everybody goes berserk. I mean, he literally has everything that happens in that first couple of pages, and it's a brutal sequence in the book.
Yeah, I love the ice cream trucks.
Right, but of course, just like the ending as well, they made it so much better in this film version, right? I mean, they were so much... It was fantastic. I mean, once you get to the ending, it's even greater. But it was funny when I think Stephen King had a long time working on this film, like he was going to write the script, but from what I had read is that they brought in another person, and Stephen King said, I'm going to remedy the ending of the book because a lot of people probably apparently had issue with the ending of the book.
So
I guess sort of
what
like
the fuck? I didn't understand.
Okay, we'll get to that. So he apparently he and I think John Cusack, who stars in this film, John Cusack tends to write, I guess, a lot of his films. He sort of does Edward Norton, but he's not as, like maybe he's not that much of an asshole. Although he wasn't in Hot Tub Time Machine 2, which makes me think that he might be one of those guys that rewrites the script, like an actor that rewrites a whole film while they're in it. So that's what it kind of gives me an idea about John Cusack. To me, John Cusack is sort of the Steven Seagal now, where he's in anything, but he actually has talent.
He's good. I have never minded him.
I haven't. John Cusack is one of those guy actors. You know, like you've seen him in everything, but he's sort of now like Nicolas Cage in a sense that he's not as embarrassing as Nicolas Cage, I guess. People find Nicolas Cage embarrassing, like his fantasy. But although you know what movie I'm going to bring up, which is one of the greatest movies of all time. I only saw 10 seconds of it.
Ghost
Rider 2. Yeah, one of the greatest.
Oh my god. It's so bad.
I tell you, I saw 10 minutes of that film. I think it was a part where he's at a parking lot or something. And it's like a junkyard or something, and I was like, I couldn't believe that this left an editing bay.
Unreal.
I couldn't believe that left an editing room, and somebody said, okay, we'll send this out to screens like movie theaters. Anyway,
yeah.
So we have Clayton Riddell. This is from the wiki itself. About the novel.
Okay.
Clayton Riddell, struggling artist from Maine, has just landed a graphic novel deal in Boston where the pulse, a signal set out over the global cell phone network, suddenly turns every cell phone user into a mindless zombie-like killer. Clay is standing in Boston Common where the pulse hits, causing chaos to erupt around him. Civilization crumbles as the phoners attack each other and blah blah, and unaltered people in view. So, here's the thing.
Right.
They changed the opening setting where he's in Boston Common. I think Boston Common must be a park. I don't know. They changed that into what?
An airport, and tried to make it it felt like they were trying to go for World War Z or something.
Right, like not Walking Dead, but yeah, more World War Z, because these are the 28 Days Later zombie. I don't know. 28 Days Later must have come out way before the Cell. So I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure King saw Cell and was like, "Fuck these, running." Well,
these
zombies
aren't even zombies. They're superhumans. They fly.
Right. They're basically insane people. They're insane people. But like I always say to myself, I'm not so specific
but in the book,
about
they're not insane. That's the thing. They didn't capture it very well in the movie.
Okay.
They're really in the book. They're
yeah, but I mean the
evolved.
first sequence in the book is people attacking each other and biting arms and shit. So that looks pretty insane to me.
They start out insane. But
okay, right. That's what I'm just saying. Is to me it's sort of like the way it starts out is very 28 Days Later. Then it becomes some sort of Children of the Corn-esque sort of hive mind mentality thing, and they changed it to a like you said, an airport, and I don't know why they did that change. And I guess you're right. It gives it much more of a what's the word? A bigger presence,
epic.
I would assume.
Yeah, but the thing that was cool about it being in an ice cream truck and outside in a park is that it's taking a regular, normal day and showing how fucking crazy it could get. This is it's too easy to make an airport crazy,
Yeah.
There's no skill involved.
And maybe they just didn't have the rights to film it out in the street. I mean, I assume this was shot at probably an abandoned airport place. I don't know, or how they have sets already at places. Like they have airports sets for movies that they use in different places all the time. I'm sure they didn't fucking shoot this.
I mean, to me, it's way cooler to see a regular suburban area of Boston.
And here's the thing: I think it was fun. I mean, I like that there was a lot of people in there, but to me, the whole film looks cheap. And I don't know how to explain that because it looks like there's a lot of stuff on screen. I mean, there's a lot of things going on screen, which looks like there's some money going on, but it looks like a sci-fi film the way that it's shot. And somebody completely said that on IMDb as well, and I was like, yeah, you're right. It does look like a sci-fi film. I don't know what exactly it is. I don't know whether it's because it's framed this way, but there's just something about the movie that looked so cheap to me, and I couldn't understand why that is. And I was like, this guy who directed this, he did The Door in the Floor, which is a movie that had Jeff Bridges in it, and I think was a really respected sort of drama about a guy and his wife who's gone insane. But he also did Paranormal Activity 2, which I heard really almost derailed the series. So, I mean, this guy has his filmography is kind of uneven, and anyway, going to this film, they have John Cusack is playing Clayton Riddell, like we just said before, and I don't know what it is, but he looks like he's not from this planet. Like, there's just something wrong. Like, John Cusack's acting is like he's sleeping through the whole film. Like, he's just bizarre. Like, I don't, like,
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I read the book probably a year after it came out, so like maybe 2007 is when I read the book.
Okay.
And what I want to talk about is what expectations of Stephen King novels to movie. And I'm like, did I really, like, I liked,
what
I
decade,
remember,
though? It varies so much.
well,
by
true,
decade.
right. But I'm saying, like I read the book and I enjoyed it a lot. I was like, damn, this is good, until I read Mr. Mercedes, and that ended up becoming my favorite Stephen King novel. But that's more of a weird sort of cop book. And
Right.
but I remember reading it, and like, I don't remember much of the book except for a major character's death. I remember the park scene. I remember the main zombie antagonist was a black guy. I remember that's
The
pretty much
Raggedy Man.
right. That's pretty much all I remember. And I remember them being in a field, or it was actually a house. I thought that they had this, like, you heard like this old school like 50s music. That's
I believe
really,
it was actually at the college campus.
Was it on the campus? Because I could have sworn they were inside of a building. I don't remember it being a football field. But
it
anyway,
happens a few times.
okay, because I remember that's all I remember. Then I was like, did I really enjoy it? Like, I know I enjoyed the novel, but I don't remember much from it other than those sort of talking points. So when I watched this film, I was like, did I really expect too much from this book to be put into a film? But I did remember flying zombies, and the zombies sort of talking to each other, and I was like, why didn't I see that in the movie? Like, you know, like,
Because they didn't elaborate. Also, they are like psychically taking over people's bodies, and the Raggedy Man like targets them and shit. Like, it gets way cooler in the book.
yeah, no, there's definitely a lot more going on in the novel that they just did not bother with. And I wonder how much of Stephen King's initial draft of the script they stayed with, because Stephen King has also been writing, you know, film scripts based on his books as well. And I think he just came out with one a couple. Like, Stephen King really has a hit or miss, like, filmography. Although I heard he has some very good movies based on his novels.
Some of them are horrible.
And what did he do? There was one recently called A Perfect Marriage, I believe it's called. And that's basically based on it's based on Dennis Rader, who is the bind torture killer guy, a BTK. BTK was this guy who was like a normal, regular dude who, I think he was pest control or animal control, and he was killing women on the low for the longest time. Almost like whole families. He would go break into their houses, bind them, and torture them, and then kill them. And like, he got caught because he sent an email, like a fucking, he actually sent a letter to the cops.
So this is during email, so it was recent.
No, it was maybe late 90s, maybe, that he got caught. But he had the retard sent a floppy disk to the police, like, to taunt them, because he was one of those killers.
Right.
And sorry for using the word retard. He's even worse than that. He's a stupid idiot. I guess the cops looked up what the background was of the floppy disk, and they found out where he was doing it from. So they caught him, and he did it at a church. What a moron! Which is good. Yeah. Glad he got caught, because he was an asshole anyway. But anyway, he did that. It's called A Perfect Marriage, and I don't think, like, King's works are hard to adapt.
Are great.
Right.
Like Pet Sematary, you would think would be really hard to adapt. It's great.
Myself, I wasn't too crazy about Pet Sematary. People love that movie. For me, I was just like, why don't the guy just get a fucking different cat? He doesn't have to, like, his son is gonna be like, this ain't my cat. The kid's like 3 years old. Like, he's gonna know what the fucking difference.
Well, it's
that
not
was
about
my
the cat. It's about the pull of that place.
But obviously, there's versions of, like, The Shining and stuff like that. Like, I remember watching the remake for television, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good. But when I saw the version that Kubrick made, I was like, damn, this is pretty cool. I mean, for me, the Kubrick,
Stephen King hated it,
right? Because he wanted, he thought that what was his character's name? Jack Torrance. He thought that Jack Torrance came out looking crazy from the beginning, and there was no build up to it. And
sure, but he's cool with the horrible things that are going to be happening to Dark Tower or like this movie Cell, where they like take out all of the good stuff.
Right, but it really depends. It really depends on the director that is working with his material, because like The Shining, like holy shit, that was a great film. To me, that movie wasn't that deep, but listen, I'm able to miss deep stuff in films, and I understand. I'm sure there's people going, "What? The Shining is the deepest film of all time? Didn't you see that blood coming through the elevators means a miscarriage?" Yeah, sure, buddy, sure. But people that even adapt The Green Mile or Stand By Me, it seems more of his non-horror works are much more easier to adapt than his horror films.
Shawshank was one of the best movies ever.
Right, obviously, because you look at it and you're like, fucking hell, this came from Stephen King, and that's why people still give him the love that he deserves, because he's able to write films like that. Even with, like when I was talking about Mr. Mercedes, which is 3 books, they're crime books, but they're really fucking good. Like the second one I wasn't too crazy about, which is, I think, I forget the name of the second. Oh, Finders Keepers. And I'm sorry, we're going to go into Stephen King history here, because I'm sort of like, I'm new to Stephen King, even though I've been aware of him for the longest time. And you're probably like, I got to hang up this episode. But like, the Mr. Mercedes trilogy is about this kid who's a fucking psychopath, and he steals a Mercedes car and drives into a group of people and kills like 8 people. And then he just tries to mentally torture everybody who's involved. They never caught him, and he mentally tortures a cop involved to like kill himself. But the cop
was he
comes
like
back.
Psychic?
No, that happens in the 3rd book. The first 2 books are based in reality. That was because at the ending of the 2nd book, a character who was in the first one suddenly, like out of nowhere, at the ending of the book, there's psychic stuff going on, and I was like, uh-oh. But the 3rd book does it well enough that I enjoyed it. So, I mean, you're like, it's almost like if you were to read...
Stephen King rarely writes something that's completely unenjoyable.
Right, true. I mean, like, he's like a very successful genre writer, and that's why. It's almost like if you picked any book, like, just imagine if you read The Green Mile has psychic stuff in it. Okay, let's say The Shawshank Redemption in the 2nd book. The main character was able to fly in the air. You'd be like, wait a minute, what's going on here? So I mean, it's an interesting take, because you're like, wait, this first one was based in reality. Now, what I thought they should have done with Mr. Mercedes is all 3 of those books should have just been one giant book. You know how he has these, like, I think that JFK novel, which is almost like 2,000 pages,
1963 or whatever.
Yeah, he could have just put that all into one fucking book, and it would have just been a gigantic book where...
Well, God knows he has enough books that are like 1,000 pages or more.
That's true. So anyway, with this film, his adaptation work of it's why I feel it's weird is that how much was I expecting from this zombie book? And is it because the director's directing in this film is so sort of lackluster? Because it's shot almost like...
I think that really is it, honestly.
Because it's shot like a television film. That's why I said it looks like sci-fi. And here's the thing. It has a pretty good cast. To me, everybody in this film is acting really good. Like, even John Cusack, to me, like, I have an issue with John Cusack sometimes because, like, especially films like this, because it feels like he's sort of sleepwalking through movies. It's not like Nicolas Cage, where, like, we watch Nicolas Cage and every shitty...
he's fucking awesome in
1408. Right. You watch Nicolas... Right, he is great in that. That's the thing. I saw him in that, and then I'll watch something like Hot Tub Time Machine, and I'm like, does he want to be in this movie? It's almost like counting the cast. John Cusack has a certain way of acting in all of his films. He's sort of like Kevin Spacey, where he acts the same in every movie, except for House of Cards, obviously. And John Cusack is good. To me, my favorite John Cusack film of all time, like I tell Danny all the time to watch, but he never does, and he should, because he'll think it's great. Better Off Dead is one of the greatest. It might be to me the greatest 80s.
You told me to watch that.
I'm sure I did. I'm sure 1408. Every John Cusack movie we've seen in Horror Deconstruction, with maybe one movie is 1408. I've said to watch that film. You will love that film, because to me it ranks even higher than The Breakfast Club or any of those 80s films, because it's just the blackest humor ever.
It's not a horror movie though, right?
No, it's a comedy film. It's very fun. It's like one of those films where he tries to kill himself all the time, and he jumps off of a bridge and falls into a trash truck. And then for no reason, these 2 black guys are looking at him and says, damn, they threw out a perfectly good white boy. And it's like, it's that kind of stupid humor, but it's great. That guy who did that did Eek the Cat. So if you remember Eek the Cat, you'll remember the kind of humor that movie has. But Samuel Jackson's in this. And
awesome.
Samuel Jackson is just like Nicolas Cage, but he's awesomer in a way that like Samuel Jackson.
Nicolas Cage is like horrible or good.
Nicolas Cage, I don't know, because you can tell he has passion for the film that makes you want to root for him. It's not like Steven Seagal where he'll just be in anything and he's horrible in all of it. And but Samuel Jackson is awesome because he's a very good actor and you believe him
I've never seen him in any role where he's not good. And
right.
In everything.
It's like almost disturbing because he's like, why don't you just fuck up once? But you can tell no matter what piece of shit he's in, he's good in it. Like, doesn't matter what the movie
on a
is.
plane.
He what's that? I didn't watch that movie, but I saw parts of it, and he was good in it. He's Samuel Jackson, but he knew that was a joke movie. You know what I mean? So you watch him, and you're like the guy just is too. Like, he's a real deal actor. I mean, like he could thank. I mean, he's always been acting. He's been acting way before Pulp Fiction. He can thank Tarantino basically for with that film solidifying his stance. Like, he never has to work again. I mean, he never has to really work, but he does. You can tell that he gives a shit about acting, and because I've seen. I walked through when Blockbuster was still around. Like, even in the late 2014. Like, there was a poster or a DVD of some cheap fucking karate movie, and he's playing a bad guy, and I was like, I don't even have to watch this movie, but I know at least he's good in it. The rest of the movie probably will be horrible. But he's great in this movie as Tom McCourt. Like, he's fucking he elevates any movie he's in. That's the crazy thing about it. And I'm sure Samuel Jackson...
been in 164 acting roles.
Of course, he's fucking great. And Samuel Jackson and John Cusack, obviously they were both in 1408 together. So maybe this is some sort of quasi-weird Stephen King reunion for the both of them. And they were like, oh, we'll just do it. Well, let's do it.
And then they're trying to get into the idea that... that John Cusack, that, you know, his character Clay had like a psychic premonition and drew the thing about him. I don't remember that in the book.
I don't remember.
Maybe that's in the book. But
like I said, I don't remember. I remember hardly anything from that. Isabel Furman, if you guys remember the film Orphan, I never saw the movie, but she's in here playing Alice Maxwell. And I think she does really well, but she's not given enough, really. But I will say, like I had told you earlier that before we saw this, that there was a character death in The Witch that was really good. And I thought that her death in here was pretty effective. Because in the novel, I mean, I don't like...
The acting the acting's great in this movie. There's nothing wrong with it.
In the novel, she gets killed differently. She gets killed by a couple of normal kids.
Throw a brick at her, yeah.
Yeah, and they kill her. And when I read the book, I was like, I'm not usually shocked by shit in books, but I did not expect her to get killed in the book. Like, maybe you had read enough Stephen King novels to sort of know anybody would die, but
I was pretty upset by
she was a prominent character, and plus her character's like 16 years old, so I'm like, she's not gonna die, she's a kid. And then she gets killed, and I was like, holy shit. And then for the rest of that novel, I was waiting for those two motherfuckers to get killed, so I was happy that they were. But in the movie, they have her just get hit in the head with a bat by one of the infected women, and I was like, oh shit. Like, I mean, I was like,
how did they didn't really explain it, but I'm going to assume that the Raggedy Man forced those people to listen to the phones.
I guess.
To try to kill the other people.
It's so vague of what's happening in the movie. You don't know what's going on. But I got to say, like, when she was dying in her scene, like, that was good acting. Like, she was really good in that scene where you see her, obviously her eye is all, like, bloodshot because I guess the trauma to her brain from getting hit with the bat. Yeah. And she's just, like, talking softly to herself. And I was like, I didn't even know this character, really. But instantly in that moment, in her acting and her dying, I felt bad for her. As much as I did in the book. Because I was like, plus, she's, like, a young girl, and she had to kill her mother in the film. But that's not really, like, you're not really...
that's just another day.
I didn't really give a fuck about characters in this movie. And also, other characters like Stacy Keach got wasted in this movie. Stacy Keach is a cool-ass actor. That guy's been in everything. He was the guy playing Charles Ardai. He's the one he's basically the one that explains to Clayton how the zombies are sort of like in this hive thing and how they recoup during the night, and
they're basically radio transmitters.
Basically, yeah. And he's great, but I thought he was longer I'm sure he was longer in the book, because I think he survives in the book.
They definitely gave him a bit more but he was a short-lived character. From
Here
what I
you can
remember.
tell. Here you can tell. They'll be like, "Oh, Stacy Keach, we'll give you $100,000 to do 2 days of work." And you're like, "Okay," and he just
Yep.
and then he gets impaled by what? Something blows up and impales him, right? Like I think
It's like part of the truck impaled him or something.
And Owen Teague plays Jordan. Jordan, he's playing a pretty good preppy kid. Like he's good. The kid playing him. I didn't really necessarily care when he's crying his eyes out with in front of Clayton at the end. Like, you can't leave, you're not blah, blah. And I was like, haven't you been with him for 2 days? You're gonna cry like this? I can understand.
Well, they get more into it in the books, and also
right. But I'm just solely focusing on the film where you're not with these characters enough. Like I believed Clayton and Clayton and Tom. Sorry, Clay and Tom's relationship, even though that was kind of stretching it, because Tom McCourt, their relationship together is not necessarily so buddy-buddy that I'll kill for you. You know what I mean? They're sort of like, we got to survive together. And I think that's the way Samuel Jackson had played it, because... Damn, I just got to say, like, Samuel Jackson, like, if you're going to have to watch this movie, just watch it for Sam Jackson's...
the character in the book is different from what I remember.
Yeah, right. He's a white gay guy. I think that's right.
He's like, I think he's supposed to be like really short and like kind of timid, but like, and he grew up in like this super Christian neighborhood or something.
Yeah,
so
where they're
like,
able to get into the character, and he's gay in this film too. That he just says it in one line. He says, "Oh, when my husband left me," and that's cool that they just threw that in because it's not necessarily a huge character trait or anything to do with it. It's just he just happens to be gay. They
should have like focused more on the character development and less on the silliness.
What's the silliness?
Just these kind of like half-ass like zombie scenes. Like they could have done the beginning scene and then like had a lot of character development and then had like little expansion on the explanation for what the zombies are, like show them flying around and shit, but instead they're having 10 minutes of them transmitting noises from their mouth but not explaining what it means.
Right. I think what that is what they did is that they were like, we need to de-Stephen Kingify this movie. Because...
Why?
I don't know. Because you know what happens? Here's the thing. Characters talking isn't as exciting as characters running away from zombies, I assume.
But apparently it is, because this movie didn't do well.
Yeah, no, it went straight to DVD, I think. But you're watching it, and although Samuel Jackson was doing a lot of interviews, so I don't know if it was for this film, but I don't know why he's on TV so much this week. But, yeah, it's like a Stephen King movie. You're wondering, like... what you expect from a Stephen King film is this: characters in a room talking about shit, and then shit hits the fan every 10 minutes. That doesn't happen here. They're just running from these constant zombie hordes.
Like the movie The Mist.
Right, exactly. That's exactly...
There's like an alien world outside, but 90% of the movie is literally just people talking quietly in a supermarket.
And then, and it's slowly, tension is building up between all these characters. That's usually... The Mist is the perfect... If you want to think of any horror film that Stephen King writes, or his novels, or what do you expect from his films, The Mist is the perfect, idea of what a Stephen King horror film is.
I actually like the movie better than the book. The book is short. It's only like 50-page short story type of thing. And
they're going to turn that into a miniseries, by the way. I don't know. I guess they're going to have people for 10 episodes inside of a mall. I don't know what the fuck they're going to do with that.
Or a supermarket. Yeah, I don't know why.
Supermarket, right.
It's kind of dumb, but I thought the movie was... Whatever. It doesn't have to be exactly like the book. It just has to capture the feeling of it, and this movie doesn't really.
And there's two interesting... there's one interesting idea here, is that when one zombie sees you, that opens up the transmission for the other zombies to know where you're at, which is pretty cool. I don't remember that from the book. I'm sure it's from the book, because I don't think the writers, whoever did this movie, is smart enough to remember that shit. Two other characters are Ray and Denise. That's the guy who's running the ice cream truck. He's playing a crazy person, but he's the only one where I was like, oh, this guy's acting, because he's doing those actor twitches, and he's acting like he hasn't slept in a couple of days. And speaking to Danny, who actually lives at it now, not sleeping, I haven't seen him twitch. He looks more like he's actually like a zombie. But Ray is the only character played by Anthony Reynolds, and I understand what he was going for. He's playing like an insane person, like a person who's driven over the edge because he can't sleep because he knows that the zombies will read his minds. And but he's just like, you're watching it going, he's acting. But the thing is, I work with actors, so I'm like, he's acting. Like he's just acting. Like I couldn't believe him because he was so cartoonish. And his the woman that he's with called Denise, she has like this heavy Bostonian accent. And she's sort of like, who gives a shit? But yeah, Ray.
Watch out for those trucks that go by like it's
yeah, and plus, I think it's a school bus they have in the novel instead of an ice cream truck. I think maybe they just did that.
I think they put the ice cream truck in to pay ode to the book with the beginning scene. But
yeah, he blows himself up in the movie. He literally is just like Stacy Keach, where he has 2 sequences and that it's over for him because you're like. He's able to trust Clay enough after one scene that he blows himself up and leaves the truck to him.
I mean, that does... What? He doesn't... as far as I know in the book, he doesn't blow himself up, but that is basically what happens in the book. There's a guy who packs the bus with C4, gives Clay a phone, doesn't explain, and then kills himself.
Okay. So, let's see. Clay sets off alone, but the others soon reappear driving, and this is from the novel. Okay, here we go. Ray then commits suicide. The group arrives at Cashawk. What's Cashwalk?
That's basically unaffiliated, no phone town. It's like a small town in Maine that has no cell phone towers. Okay. And basically, it's like a safe zone for humans. I forget exactly how it goes in the book, but like they're getting all these dreams, and they're basically being guided towards these areas. And then the phone people are like forcing them against their will, like telepathically, to line up and answer phones.
And there's also like zombies. Like, here's the thing: if you read the wiki for the novel, there's obviously 4 or 5 paragraphs. If you did the wiki for the film, it'd probably be 3 lines of what the fuck happens in this movie because there's nothing really that's like really explained. And they obviously maybe they didn't have the budget for what they wanted.
I didn't understand the ending either, like at all.
Okay, I'll get to that. This is where. So anyway, here's it go. Jordan. This is from the novel wiki. Jordan theorizes that a computer program caused the pulse, and while it is still broadcasting into the battery-powered cell phone network, it has become corrupted with a computer worm that has infected the newer phoners with a mutated pulse. So it's basically a phoner versus phoner thing in the books as well. So, like, there's infighting between the zombies. So, and also, here's the thing.
There's different generations.
The Raggedy Man has been changed into the film into a generic, like, white guy with long hair. Like, he's sort of like a shitty version of who's our favorite guy from the Dark Tower? From the Stand?
One?
The Stand, the Man in Black. What's his name?
Walter? Man in Black?
Yeah, right. You know how, like, it sort of looks like he's a zombie version of him in this film. So, I don't know what...
It's kind of dumb.
They
don't even get into what he does or his powers, so there's really no point of even having him.
Yeah, because I think when I was reading the wiki, like, he can't float, but some of the zombies can, and they float. And I remember reading that in the book, thinking, "Wow, that's a spooky image of a floating like zombie person." Like, I'd never read a zombie novel or seen anything with zombies flying. And to me, that I was like,
zombies. Yeah. They're the next step of human evolution.
Right, basically. And in this film, none of that. There's nobody flying in this book. Like, there's nothing. I mean, in this film, there's nobody flying or doing anything weird. So it's just a generic sort of zombie horror film. I'm calling it zombie.
They do get into transmissions coming out of their mouth,
right? Which is cool. But it's so like minuscule in how it's done. It's just like, who gives a shit? I mean, it's cool, but there's nothing done with it really. Okay, so let's get to the ending of the film.
Please explain to me.
Okay,
please.
So here's what happened. Stephen King said that he'd fix the ending of the movie. I don't know whether they told him to go fuck off and they added this weirdo ending. And the original ending, like we explained at the beginning of this episode, he gets to his son and he tries to counteract the pulse. And in this ending of the film, he takes the ice cream truck filled with bombs and stuff like that. He drives it through this field where there's a huge cell phone tower. And the Raggedy Man is waiting down there. And
that happens in the book, too.
He drives into the Raggedy Man, and with one of the worst special effects I've ever seen, where the Raggedy Man is running. I don't know whether the Raggedy Man was just standing there, and he was trying to do laser powers to him. He hits him. It's the most unbelievable hit of a guy with a car I've ever seen in a movie. And he gets out, and he sees his son. His son does the pulse into his ear, in which point he detonates, exploding everything. It cuts to a sea. It cuts to. It looks like a dream. When I was watching this, I was like, okay, so he knew he couldn't save his. This is what I'm thinking. He couldn't save his son, so he blows him up, and that's his ghost walking with his son into the woods.
That's what I was thinking.
That's what I
Maybe
thought.
He kills himself, and then that's like heaven or something. But then it shows him as one of the phone people.
Right. What I think happened is that when his son did the pulse into his ear, he's now stuck in the idea that he's walking with his kid to get the.
So he didn't actually blow
no,
up
he didn't
the
do
thing.
He just turns into that kind of mumbling, stumbling moron at the end, just in the zombie crowd.
So basically, all the phone people are stuck in their idea of heaven.
Yeah, that's it. That's what I'm thinking is happening. I think he fantasized at that last minute that he was able to save his son but didn't. So I don't know why. If this is what King wrote as a script, he must have been fucking smoking crack or something. Because this is worse. That other ending it sounds like a
The other ending was fine with me. I liked it.
Yeah, because
I don't need a solid resolution. Like, I'm happy if something's a mystery.
Because that film, I mean, that ending is sort of a resolution because he finds his son. That's it.
He finds his son, and then it's like, I wonder if this will cure it.
In this, they're trying to have some edgy, sad ending. Hey, I just remembered the worst actor in the film. It's not Ray. It was the fucking DJ guy, the Wigger character.
Yeah, what the hell was that?
I don't know. That's when I was like, because I don't even remember. I thought Tom they met at a hotel, from what I remember in the book, but in the movie, he's a train conductor or a train driver. I don't know if that's the same fucking thing.
I think he's a hotel doorman.
Right.
In the book.
And in the movie, there's like this white guy goes, yo, man, yo, and I was like, I was like, oh boy, I was like, oh no, because that's like a bad actor. Like Ray was overacting, this guy was just bad act, or maybe it was just the material that they gave him. Because I don't know how you make yo sound normal, like a human can say that. I'm sure there's plenty. I used to say yo a lot in college.
Yeah,
like
I say yo sometimes still. I don't.
Yeah, but this was like yo, I'm DJ Flazzy Z, yo, and I was like, I was like, this is horrible. I hope they kill this guy. And thankfully they hit him with an axe, which is great.
Maybe it was supposed to be like a joke. I
don't know who thought that was funny. Stephen King probably wrote that going, writing that shit because it was terrible. I couldn't believe how bad I was so glad they got rid of him because I was like, that's the point when I thought, okay, this is a sci-fi film because Sci-Fi Channel movies always have a character like that, like a bad actor that's supposed to be some sort of white badass. Which is fine, but you have John Cusack. He's the badass. He was running around kicking people in the ass. And also, how great was the cameo by the great trauma leader?
Wait, Lloyd Kaufman was in there?
Did you not see Lloyd Kaufman in the movie?
I didn't catch him. No,
Lloyd Kaufman is the first guy who says, "It's something from the cell phones. It's something from the cell phones," and he runs off. Lloyd Kaufman's in the movie. Yeah, I could not believe you didn't see it. He has such a glorified cam. I don't know how he ended up being in this movie. I think he was just walking around Boston, and he was like, "Oh yeah." I don't even think they shot him in Boston, but his delivery line makes him the third worst actor in the film. But he's like, I think the cell phones did it.
Kaufman.
Yeah, I know, it's because it's funny. But he's like, I think the cell phones are making them crazy. And then he runs off, and I was like, oh, no. Why? What is going on with this movie? That's why I was like, this movie's horrible. But I mean, Danny didn't find it that bad. I think you fell asleep during this movie. It's not good.
It took me a while to get through it, to be honest. We should. What's your rating?
Okay, so for this film, oh boy, I want to give it a 5, but that would mean it was just as good as that werewolf. I guess so. I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Boy, oh boy, 5 out of 10. Danny, help me out here.
It's on you, man. I'm trying to think of mine.
5 out of 10 casually bopping your head as you walk with a crowd of people in a circle. I did like those effects. The effects of the crowds and stuff. I thought it was pretty cool. As you're mindlessly shambling off into a circle of nothingness. and stuff.
Okay. I agree with you. I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 10 because the acting is okay.
Yep.
Sometimes it's even good, and it's not horrible. So 5 out of 10. God damn it.
This is why I wanted to talk about it being compared to the novel, because was the novel as good as I thought it was? And reading the wiki, I was like, yeah, I guess
the novel
it was.
is definitely better,
Yeah.
for certain. 5 out of 10, dramatically blowing yourself up because you're that ashamed of your acting abilities.
With that, Danny, what's the final word?
4.
The horror deconstruction.